Hello and welcome back to the Hawks Nest live stream show. We just wrapped up draft coverage, but no day is going to be complete on draft day as we go into move into the future here. Unless I got my man, Seahawks Brendon Nelson, coming in the house so that we can get our heads together on this and make sure that we've got this thing figured out. Good, bad, indifferent, the other way. We got to figure it out. And then I'm going to be fully at rest here off the first day. Feel pretty good. Got to find out what my man Brendon thinks. Brendon, welcome to the Hawks Nest house again. How you doing, man? How you feeling?
It's good right now, right? It's good.
Yeah. I see a slight smile on your face. I see a slight smile. It's not always there.
It's just it just felt good to know that we weren't going to do it again. It felt good to know, at the very least, if we're here in 5 years talking about how much Charles Cross sucked, it's not going to be like the conversations we have about LJ Collier now. It's at least it's going to be different.
No. You can't, there's no certainties in football. In fact, it's probably, I think you'd agree, the most uncertain sport about the players you're getting. Free agency picks, injuries come up, weird things happen with these guys. You could have a guy that's not even injured and hit somebody going 160 miles an hour because he's drunk off his butt. There's wild things that can happen, but you can make the smart decisions at the front end of it. You can do the things that are, at least, as much as it's boring for some people to go with Cross, Cross, and he doesn't run by. It's the no-brainer decision to make in that position. If I think you would agree, Brendon, if there was any of the 32 NFL teams were sitting with the left tackle need we were sitting at pick number 9, wouldn't you say pretty much all of them pull the trigger on that pick with Cross there?
Maybe if you're a team that, like the Ravens, who's all about run blocking, maybe then you don't. Other than that, I think so. Again, Cross is a guy who was rumored to be slipping over the last few weeks, but we don't know if that's true or not. People say a lot of things.
Yeah.
If we don't take Cross at 9, maybe he goes at 10, or maybe he does slip all the way to 20. I don't know. But what I do know is that when I evaluated him before the draft, there wasn't really a lot bad I could say about him. The negatives that I listed about Cross were basically like, well, his technique is good, but it could be better. Well, his run blocking is good, but it could be better. There was nothing about it that was like, oh, this is really bad. This is terrible. He's never going to do this. I didn't really have anything like that. Maybe he was, maybe you want him to be a little bit stronger, but that he's 21. I think that'll come.
That's right. And you did have those same things you talk about on the other end of it in regards to Trevor Penning. If we talk about where he slides to, the bottom level of where he slides, in my opinion, if he doesn't go to us, is to 17 there at the Saints, who end up taking Trevor Penning in this draft to replace Teron Armstead. Funny enough, I think Teron Armstead comps out very closely to Charles Cross. I think they're very close from a physical profile standpoint. So, you knew he was going to go there very, bare minimum. But yeah, it's a pick where a guy you can't pick a lot of as part of in his game like you can with some of these other offensive line prospects. Even Ekwonu or Neal have a very high potentiality of ending up in being guards. Now, I think they'll fit and they'll make it to tackle, but there's no doubt that people are talking about those guys as guards at the next level, and nobody is talking about Charles Cross in that same way.
Yeah, he is a pretty pure left tackle. I know apparently he said that he feels like he can play right tackle if need be, but I'm not even really looking at him like that, and that's totally fine. That's the actual side that's hard to find.
Yeah.
Right tackles, you can find those guys a little easier, I think. But left tackle, no.
No, it's much tougher, and it's getting more challenging, Brendon. These kids coming out as edge rushers, these Trayvon Walker types, these Aiden Hutchinson types, these Kayvon Thibodeau types, coming screaming off that blind side. It isn't getting any weaker on that edge of it. It isn't going to get any easier through the NFL and having to deal with those guys. So you need somebody to deal with them. Great pick as far as on the Seahawks fan point. It's going to help and go a long way to that again, especially a guy whose first and foremost skill set is pass blocking. That is what he does at an upper level state as it stands right now. And your point on, by the way, 21, let's not forget that. 21 years old. I mean, these guys, that's the part of, there's more to his game and develop, don't you? At that point, he's not a finished product.
Yeah, how could he be? How could he possibly be a finished product at 21? I don't know when he's turning 22. I assume it's before the season. But remember, this is a COVID class too, right? We are still experiencing the effects of COVID, which is why you see some of these 24-year-old rookies, some 25-year-old rookies. I think Cole Strange is going to be 25 before the season starts.
Really? Is he an older prospect too?
I could be wrong, but I feel like he's I think he's going to be 25 before the season starts. So getting a guy like Cross, who has plenty of room to grow. And by the way, to the people who didn't like him because he's too small, apparently he's currently 315 pounds. So I don't know what anybody could be worried about there, right?
Right. I mean, he's going up against, let's say, half the time you're going to 60% of the time you're going up against outside linebacker types, right? The OLBs that they're not going to go past 255, 260. So he's not getting overwhelmed at the point of attack by those guys. So it's the traditional defensive ends we're talking about are going to give him fits, who will still, their heaviest weight's 270 at the heaviest. He'll still outweigh only them by 50 pounds, then 40 pounds. So it's, I've never bought into the thing. If he was a 290-pound guy, maybe we could have had that conversation. When you're talking 310, 315, he fits the marks. He does.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a couple of months, you can just have him put his wallet in his back pocket. He'll be 320 because he's going to get paid that rookie deal money. Still pretty good. And, whatever. Walter Jones was what, 325 when he played?
Mm-hmm. If even that.
Yeah.
Now,
are we going to grandstand over 5 pounds? I don't think so.
I think your point about age is another thing with this too. Guy at 21 is going to have a good chance to add another 10 to 15 pounds on him versus a guy at 24 going to be 25. Is that guy got another 10 to 15 pounds of muscle and strength he's going to add on to him? I'm not as certain when it comes to that. I mean, do you find there a difference between a prospect you look at who's 21 versus 24 in that realm, that there's just a very difference versus what I can see from a developmental standpoint?
There has to be. I think that one of the criticisms of the Seahawks drafting in recent years from some of the people on like Twitter was we keep taking guys who are old and they're capped out. And the guys they're going up against are guys who, when they got drafted, they were only 21 or 22. They got better. They physically improved. I remember, I think it was ZJ Whitman posted something after we drafted Darrell Taylor about how we keep drafting 24-year-old pass rushers. And they just never panned out. I think like Cassius Marsh might have been one of them. We just looking at these guys, he's like, because they are what they are in college, and they feast in college because they're physically more advanced than the people they're going up against because they're older.
Yeah.
And that was one of his concerns with Darrell Taylor. Now, so far, Darrell Taylor looks like he's going to be fine. But regardless, the fact that you're getting somebody younger lets you know that there's a lot of upside here. Now, the other side of that is that he's probably going to get pushed around a little bit as a rookie. He's going to have some stuff to learn. He's going to probably get pushed around a little bit by some of the elite pass rushers we face, but that's part of the process. And I think it'll absolutely be worth it. So I'm ready for the Charles Cross experience. If I was a jersey person, I would get his jersey. And I think of the 4 things the Seahawks did today, I think they got all 4 things right.
Yeah. There's no way to me to pick at this in any respect. And by the way, on the other end of that, LJ Collier being an older prospect, Dwayne Eskridge last year was an older prospect. I think some of this was the Bruce Irvin success because he was another guy who came out at a very, I think 24, 25, I think he was 25 when he came out, Bruce did. So they have some marginal successes with this. I think the Darrell Taylor being older, by the way, to me, hearing that, I wasn't aware of that and remembering it that way. That almost makes that pick worse than that estimation with knowing where his leg was at. You're getting an older prospect with that leg, then going to take that extra year. It is what it is at that point, but that's discouraging, especially understanding, Brendan, that defensive end pass rusher, edge rusher, even defensive tackle edge pass rushers, they take a little bit of time usually to develop. That would be more of the position you would probably try to target younger than older, wouldn't you say? If there's one position in particular you look at because of that aspect, because it's not one that I'm likely to see him hit the ground running.
Yeah. I think it's probably true for most positions, though. Like, as you get older, you're just going to advance physically, and you're going to also advance mentally. Some of these guys are immature in some ways, and sometimes that really shines through, but give them a few years. Like, I have a feeling that, like, DK Metcalf is going to be very different in 3 years than how he is now, where he is occasionally rubbing some fans the wrong way and making people concerned about his long-term viability. I would hope that after a few years that starts to fade a little bit. So yeah, taking young players, like there's tremendous upside here. And the fact that Cross, somebody in chat said he's not turning 22 until November, that's one of the younger rookies we've had here in a while, I would think. I'm thinking, have we taken a 20-year-old ever?
It's been a long time if you have. It's been a really, I mean, I think DK was pretty young when he came in. DK was right at that line of being, he was, I think, 21 even into his rookie year too. So maybe he would be the only one, but then beyond him, who I don't know. I think everybody else was pretty old at that point, or at least normal age, what you get from a prospect. What as far as this first round goes, did you have any kind of just generalized thoughts on what you saw from this first round, from the trades guys picked? I mean, you mentioned Strange. I think to me that was the biggest reach of the
Yeah.
first round by quite a bit of margin, right? I mean, the next behind that's maybe Quay Walker or something, but
Yeah.
that was a huge reach to me. How about
Other
yourself?
than some of the stuff the Raiders were doing with Mainock, that might be the worst pick I've ever seen in my life. Like, you took a guy who I think was fourth round at best in the first. The only comps I can draw would be like the Cleveland Farrell pick and maybe the Alex Leatherwood pick. Those were, I think, God, were both those guys taken in the top 15? Farrell was top 5.
Yes, Farrell was top. Farrell was worse. Farrell's worse.
Yeah.
The Raider you mentioned a name the other day going way back though that might even be worse was Hayward Bay. Didn't
That
the
was a
Raiders do?
terrible draft at least. I mean,
Yeah, that's
it was
true.
bad, but that was at least a really bad draft.
That's true. I mean, that's true. But
Yeah.
it certainly was that was by far the best. And this was a first round filled with pretty much guys win of what you knew were going to go. My mock, I got 26 of the 32 players in the first round right in my mock. I didn't get the exact spots they went right, but I felt like the teams fit pretty close to type of what we thought of who was going to go, where they were going to go. And even the guys like that I didn't have going Daxton Hill or in that area, that wasn't a huge reach. He was going to go at the top of the second round if he wasn't going to go in the first.
Yeah. So as for the rest of the first round, looking at what else happened, because obviously we only picked once, it really made me feel good about what the Seahawks were doing because, okay, you get Cross. That's number one. I think that's a great pick, especially with who had gone before. And one thing I want to say about this is I know there are some Seahawks fans out there who really didn't like Cross, really don't like this pick. Not to discount anything that they may think. Obviously, everyone's entitled to feel however they want to feel. One thing I do notice, I don't think there's anything we could have done that would have made even a large majority of fans happy. I was taking the temperature of my viewers going into the draft, and there was a non-trivial portion of my viewers that was down on anything we could do. Like, oh, I don't want to take a cornerback. It's too high to take a cornerback when you have Pete. Oh, Thibodeau's going to be a bust. I even had some Oregon fans who are also Seahawks fans who are like, oh, Thibodeau's going to be terrible. You don't want that guy at all. Some people were really down on Jermaine Johnson. Some people were really down on Cross. Like obviously we're seeing some of those people now. Some people hated the Linderbaum and Lloyd idea that I had. It's like, and this is probably true for most drafts. You're not going to be able to make everyone happy. So, the 20 to 25% of Seahawks fans I've seen who really don't like this pick, I hear you, but I was trying to find, I was sitting there a few days before the draft trying to think, is there anything we could do that everyone would be cool with? And the answer I came to was no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It can't be helped.
I think if there's a player that would come as close to any chart on that you could find of those guys you mentioned, Charles Cross might be it. Of that man, I think any of those guys was going to draw a certain set of the fan base would relent and say, no, I don't like this at all. But he's at least, I think, gets you as close to the consensus point that I think you're talking about getting, where there was a consensus player that would just make people happy. And I think people will like the pick better on retrospect than in the moment. But like you just said, the guys that even the people maybe had wanted in more of a force, maybe a bit of Thibodeau, maybe a bit of Ahmad Gardner talk in there, those guys weren't on the board. They were off the board, the guys that would have been in that close consensus standpoint. So the guys that were remaining left, you did well with what was remaining left on the board, in my opinion, from a smart decision standpoint. What about not talking about Seahawks related, but I want to get your thoughts on this Cardinal trade. Okay?
Right.
I got two things I want to talk. I want to talk about the receiver trades. Those are the two we got to touch on for a couple of reasons, but let's lead with this one. What the hell are the Cardinals doing, Brendon?
I think they're scrambling to make Kyler Murray happy. I think they're looking at a receiver who did catch 90 passes for 1,000 yards with Lamar Jackson throwing him the ball. And, Lamar is Lamar. I'm not going to call him a running back, but he's 35% of the way to being a running back. So maybe they're looking at that and going, his numbers are going to be a little depressed because of that. Maybe he's a true number one. Our first round pick, there was a big run on receivers right before the Cardinals pick came up. There was nobody there they could have gotten, except maybe they could have reached for Christian Watson, but short of that, maybe they figured it was their best way.
They need, like with Chandler Jones walking out the door, why not edge rusher in that moment, especially with there being guys like Mafe on the board?
Well, Jermaine Johnson was still on the board at that
Jamar,
point too.
okay, Jermaine Johnson too. I mean, why? And right now, you look at their pass rush going into next year. You've got Marcus Golden and JJ Watt, and that's about it.
Yeah, I can't really defend that part of it. I do think that maybe there's some panic to please Napoleon over there, you know?
Yeah, I think you're
He
right. You're 100% right on that. This is a Kyler Murray driving, but if you've got a young quarterback like this driving this decision making from a franchise standpoint, that's a troubling to me move to make because you're not making it from the base right reasons to make a move like that. What about the first round? Basically, I mean, though there's a third round kicker back to the other side of the Cardinals on this, but it's a first round pick you're giving up. What about that aspect of it?
I think it's clear that the Cardinals were working from a place of desperation, and the
Yeah.
Ravens are a well-run organization for the most part. I think they recognized that, and they were like, "Okay, well, this is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me, but we can make a deal." And the Ravens, I I don't know if they're planning on paying Lamar Jackson, but if they do, they're not going to be able to pay people like Hollywood Brown very easily. So maybe they were like, let's get out now. We're actually going to get a first round pick out of this. A guy who has 1,000-yard season, a guy who is one of fantasy football's least favorite players. If you ever owned Hollywood Brown in fantasy, you frequently leave disappointed. But I mean, I'm not saying it's a good trade. I don't think it is.
If the Ravens had called you and you're the general manager of the Seattle Seahawks, and they said we're dangling Hollywood Brown, what are you giving me for Hollywood Brown?
Oh boy. I mean, if you're in the Cardinals' exact
No,
situation,
no. I'm talking about Seattle's situation.
oh, I'm not really giving up more than like a mid to late second rounder.
See, I wouldn't go third. So yeah, that's just kind of to illustrate the point to me of how
Yeah,
that's far off the value that they kind of give up at that. I agree with you. There's some decisions to it, but again, that desperation thing, as we say, if you're making a decision out of fight or flight mode, you're usually probably not making the right decision. It's one to get yourself in trouble.
right. And that actually ties into another thing Seattle didn't do that I liked. One was they didn't trade down.
Hmm.
Because if you looked at some of the trade downs that happened today, not very impressed with the haul that the team trading down got. Like the Vikings, I don't know what that trade was about. I thought that was pathetic. They
Oh, that
traded
was
way
awful.
down.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah,
Wait. Let's say what it was 14 to 32,
yeah.
and they picked up an extra fourth rounder,
And I think they swapped second rounders,
and
so
they
they went up
swapped
in this.
second rounders. Yeah.
I still think that's terrible. Like you're moving from the blue chipper part of the draft to the. eh, I don't know. I think that's bad. I don't like that at all. I will say I think the Vikings did get a nice player with a sign and the 32nd pick, but it doesn't. It's still a terrible trade.
Yeah.
So the value was not there. And by the way, I don't know if you heard today, this afternoon before the draft started, the early report was that Seattle was desperately trying to trade down. When I heard that, I was like, oh no, here
Yeah.
we go. Because you don't want to be working from a place of desperation. So when I
No.
heard that, I was like, oh boy. But we didn't do it, which I really liked. And yeah, we didn't trade down because the value was not there. Teams were not willing to give up a lot to move up in this draft. This was not a superstar studded draft to the point where teams would be giving you a ton of stuff for a top pick.
No.
And also, in a similar vein, so the AJ Brown trade, let's talk about this for a second
Here we
here.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. So Titans give up AJ Brown and they get a middling first rounder and a third rounder back, I think, right?
Mhm. Right.
So I don't know how to compare the value of an AJ Brown to a DK Metcalf. I think they're both probably very similar. But I do know how to compare AJ Brown to Tyreek Hill, a guy who is, I think, 5 years older than AJ Brown.
Mhm.
The Chiefs got more for Tyreek Hill than or about the same as the Titans got for AJ Brown. I'd say if you plugged it all into the calculator, it would probably come out pretty close to even.
I think you're right.
So
Tyreek's a little more. I think he's got to buy a nose on that as far as the value.
yeah, it's very close.
It is.
But so to me, the Titans just went, oh, we can't pay this guy big money. We have to get rid of him. Just get whatever you can. They came at it from a place of desperation. And the offer, the To me, AJ Brown is a guy who should probably be worth 2 first-round picks or a first and a second at least. So to me, the Titans operated from a place of desperation. They're like, oh, we got to get rid of this guy. And they did. And I think it was a disaster of a trade for Tennessee. And so I'm happy we did not do the same thing with DK. We probably could have gotten that same exact offer with Philly, and we didn't do it. So I really appreciate that because to me, DK and AJ are going to be viewed roughly the same by GMs.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what you got for AJ, I think you would have been able to get about the same for DK. So that would have infuriated me if all you get is one middling first rounder and one third rounder, like
middle third rounder too. I'm
Yeah.
with you on this. It does illustrate why you don't want to give up DK in this. You might have gotten barely a little bit more, but at the end of the day, the desperation word is the right one to use here because again, you're not making your smart. You're not looking at things from a forecasting standpoint. You're being reactive to what's happening. Oh, we just came into this offseason $15 million over the salary cap, and oh, we've got to figure out Taylor Lewan and Kevin Byard, and we've got a defensive tackle we got to pay top of the market money to. And oh, Harold Landry's sitting here, by the way. And then we've also got AJ Brown. And I've maintained too, Brendan, that why they're making this trade is because of those guys I just mentioned, he's the only one that draws back assets to you. He's the only guy of that bunch. You're not going to trade the defensive tackle because he's your foundational piece defensively speaking. Landry's not getting you a first round pick. Byard's not getting you a first round pick. Lewan's probably not getting you a first round pick. So you got the one guy who could get you the first round pick back, but that did not mean those points don't mean that you want him out the door or that you want to move on from him. It's that you're over the cap, and that's what was driving that decision making for them. Part of the reason why I continue to come back from this kind of trade, Brendan, and say, I'd like to hear what you like to say on this as well. Sign DK. Sign DK to the contract extension. The 4-year, everybody's saying to me now, the 4-year, $100 million, because that's the other part of this course is Philly signs AJ to the 4-year, $100 million, $57 million guaranteed, which is exactly what you and I basically predicted as the DK contract going forward, I think about a month ago. What's the problem here? What's the issue? That's the right value. You're actually getting, in my opinion, for a discount at that point at 25, because that's still below the high market rate of Devontae and Tyreek. What say you?
Yeah, I'm for that as well. Look, we don't have a quarterback right now. We're not paying a quarterback big money. I know we have the dead money with Wilson, but you got to remember you can stagger this stuff out. So right now you've got DK. If you extend him, you're going to be giving him $25 million a year, but that first year cap hit could be like $8 million, right? And then next year you get the quarterback. And then if you pick the right quarterback, you've got the quarterback. But when DK's big money starts kicking in, you've got the quarterback on his rookie deal stuck there for 3 years. So while DK's making big money, you've got a quarterback who's making peanuts. And you can do the same thing with some of these other players too. It's going to be a few years before Darrell Taylor gets paid. It's going to be probably at least a couple more years before Jordan Brooks gets paid. So DK is going to be expensive. It's not great, but you also have to look at all these things that you don't have to worry about over the next few years. Like okay, right now we're paying Lockett, we're paying Jamal, if we extend Metcalf, going to be paying Metcalf over the next couple of years, but we don't have to worry about quarterback. Right now, we don't really have to worry about cornerback that much because our cornerback room is pretty cheap at the moment, relatively speaking. We're paying tight ends somewhat significant money, but that's not that bad. So there's no reason to not do it. If we had Ryan Tannehill counting $41 million against the cap next year, then I would get it. Like it would be like, oh, this is a disaster. I guess we have to trade him, but that's not what we have.
No, it's a great point with that about the current contract situation and the rest of the team too, in the respect of those contracts you mentioned right at the time you're talking about the DK contract really hitting and really, that's starting to actually hurt the pocketbook now. It's not the first year. Is it right about the time that you can get out from under those contracts that you just mentioned that also could be a problematic in conjunction with it, which we don't even know if it will be because we also happen to be sitting on a over $100 million of cap space moving into the future. Just signing this deal doesn't mean that you're put behind the 8 ball. You have flexibility and you have financial. You got to what is it? A war chest of money to spend into the future. So it's again just every arrow on this points back to just sign DK. Just sign him.
Yeah. And okay, let's say it's like let's say we get Will Levis next year. So DK signs a 4-year extension. By the time Levis is coming available for an extension, after year 3, Metcalf would be past that extension, and then you could trade him or let him go or whatever. You're not paying him anymore. So as long as you stagger these things out a little bit, it'll work out. So I think you do it.
And the value is still there at that point in trading for him. He's not an old player there. He will still be
Right.
very much younger than Tyreek was just traded and very much younger than Devontae Adams was just traded at that time. So he will still be considered a guy in his prime who would still at that point maybe even garner more than you can get right now, considering the assets that A.J. Brown just returned on. Maybe the market is in a different state as far as the receivers at that point, especially as they might view DK if he continues his path of ascending, which is also a possibility here. All right, well, was there any other thing you saw in the first round that jumped out to you?
Yes, one more thing. We didn't trade up at the bottom of the first round, which some people thought we were going to do. And as the day went on, a lot of people were like, we should trade up. We should trade up. We should trade up right here. We got to get this guy. We got to get that guy. And don't get me wrong. I would have loved to get Devin Lloyd. I would have loved to get Linderbaum. Those guys slipped a lot more than I thought. Jermaine Johnson, my God, they were talking about him like he was going to go top 5. And then he slips to what, 26?
Yeah.
Something like that. I would have loved it, but at the same time, the fact that these players kept slipping, and you had that run of receivers that I didn't really have any interest in. You had the run of safeties kind of at the end there with I think the Bengals and the Vikings both took safeties.
Right.
It means that there are going to be more players you like and are interested in at 40 and 41. So I'm actually really happy we sat there because, I would have loved Jermaine Johnson or Linderbaum. But would I rather have one of those guys or both of Andrew Booth Jr. and Arnold Ebiketie, or both of Boy Mafe and Travis Jones, whatever? So I'm really happy we didn't make that trade up because I'd rather try to play this to my advantage more than just overreact to it.
Well said. That's the way to go with this. To me, is hold tight, stay in the pocket here, and let this play out. And I agree with you, especially the safeties at the back in the first round, Brendan. Such a nice way for us to see that capped out. There's no way safeties in our bar park here. We got 3 safeties taken in the first round. We might get a couple of quarterbacks here taken up here in the top of the second round if a team moves up ahead of us to do so, thinking we might pick, which again just pushes that much better of a player treatment. Travis Jones, Boy Mafe, Abraham Lucas, Andrew Booth. There's a good collection of about 8 or 9 guys that are legitimately exciting, if not even beyond that. So tomorrow, if they can just stay tight in that pocket, don't get antsy in the pantsy to trade up. The nice part is, Brendan, at this point, if they do move up, the cost becomes much more reduced here as we get deeper into the second round. And we could be talking about only a 4th to 5th round type move at that point because the value is just not the same as it is in the first round.
Yeah. And honestly, the way the value wasn't there in the first round, it makes me wonder if it's even less. Our team's going to let you move up for like maybe we throw Alton Robinson in there and move up a bunch in the second round to get whoever our guy is. Like, I don't know, but for some reason, the teams that are trading back are not getting very good value this year. Maybe it's because this draft isn't that good. I don't know.
I think it's the teams have gotten in recent years so much about holding guys over the board on those trades, really getting the returns when you're the one flipping from the low to the high end of things on that, and making teams really have to. The cost has gotten too prohibitive. And teams are just now at this point of going, I can't go that far for this kind of trade. I can't give you a second round pick to move up 5 spots in the first round. I just can't do it. But with that said on this, Brendan, there's another edge to this now, because if the cost is lower to garner one of these picks, potentially, is there any importance to you of trying to do something somehow in this? Let's not say it's a trade back. Okay. Outside of trading back, getting an extra pick here in this tier 2, day 2 realm of things. Is that of import to you, or is 3 picks fine? Ride with what we got, hold on to our picks next year, or with the way this draft's fallen, maybe move up to maybe start to target with some of the guys that are starting to fall through into the second round?
I'm not seeing any need to trade up. I'm looking at it right now. The players who are left, there are going to be at least 2 people that I really, really like at 40 and 41. I don't think you need to do that. I'm a big fan of trading back at 40, especially if we see more guys I'm not into go. Like, what if Matt Corral goes between 33 and 40? That would be great. Like, get him off the board. I don't have to worry about him anymore.
I know.
Isaiah Spiller. What if Isaiah Spiller goes? Like, some people had a second round or first round grade on him. That could happen.
I know. It's possible.
you could see more safeties go. You could see these things happen. So if we get to 40 and 41, and there are still a lot of really appealing second round guys there, then I would love to use one of those picks on maybe a edge rusher or Abraham Lucas or Falele or even a Brees Hall, and then trade down with the other one, maybe like 10 spots, and pick up a compensate. The scenario I proposed was we move back 10 picks with Philly, and then Philly gives us their third rounder, their compensatory one. It's like 101, I think.
Right.
So you're moving from 41 to 51 and picking up 101. Sign me up for that.
What about a future 3-4 for a 3 this year?
That's a little harder because we're probably not going to be a great team this year, no matter how much we nail this draft. But we do know that this year's third round has some guys that we're into, and we have no idea what it's going to be like next year. I might do it for the right guy. I
Yeah.
might do it for the right guy. If we don't take a quarterback and that's our opportunity to get Carson Strong, then I'm interested, because that could take a load off our mind going into next year if Carson Strong plays really well for us.
Absolutely.
If that's your opportunity to get Tariq Woolen, then sure.
Yeah.
So I guess it's all contextual, but I'm not opposed to it.
I'm thinking like you're getting a high third round pick, like the top, you get back into the top end of the third round with a future third and fourth, maybe on this and how I'm looking at it. And I want another swing in this realm, Brendan. This is the hot spot of this draft. This is the barrel of the bat of this draft, is the second and third round. So if I get an extra swing in it, I really put a lot of value in that, even if I got to sacrifice a little bit of future cap space to make it happen. Give
Right.
me, and you sound like you're in the same place. I know you're a little tentative on it, but I could sell you on that. I'm sure I could. Give me doesn't matter what happens in front of us. You got your big board in front of you right now. You don't get to move back. You just have to pick the two guys on your board right now that are your two guys looking at this team with the cross pick. Who are your two guys?
Big board wise, I have Andrew Booth Jr. is actually my top guy remaining. I did not think he was still going to be here at all. I had him as a guy who would go in the 20s. And so the value there is pretty phenomenal. If he's still there at 40, I know it's not perfect because he is a man corner. I know he didn't have the greatest year this most recent year, but I think I would be all over that. Also really didn't expect Nakobe Dean to still be there. I'm not completely in love with Nakobe Dean, but the value is pretty tremendous at this point. And the next guy would be Boy Mafe. I think that would be my top 3 right now for the 40-41 range.
Okay. I'd go Mafe, but I do like a Mafe Lucas or Travis Jones Ebiketie, or I'd probably lean with one of those over those guys with it. I like Booth. Booth's my number 3 corner, so I'm with you. He's my number 3 corner on my board. I thought he was a first round talent too. But boy, I like some of those other guys just in how I look at him.
Yeah, I mean, this is the really hard part, right? Because I think Booth has more value than Mafe, but I like Mafe better. This is where it gets just so hard to figure out what you're supposed to do. But and absolutely, my dream second round at this point would be probably to get Mafe and Lucas, or Mafe and Falele, or Ebiketie and Falele, some combo of that. Sprinkle a little Travis Jones in there. By the way, I don't think Booth Jr. is going to be there. I think Tampa's probably going to take him. They need a corner. I don't think Nakobe Dean's going to be there either. Somebody's going to take that dude. And honestly, I guess it would mostly be Detroit, but I kind of expect Detroit to take Willis. So, or at least a quarterback, because they still haven't yet. So I don't think it's going to be available there. But yeah, that would be my big board right now.
And I love Booth, dude. He was my third cornerback above the other two guys, even Washington guys. That's my thing. I look at our cornerback position, and I go, well, we brought in some guys in free agency, at least for the corner. We can get by at that position. But when you look at the pass rush, Dunlap gone now at this point. Taylor, your only guy out there. Do you feel good about where your pass rush is? Nwosu, that's true. He's out there. I just don't have a lot of faith in Nwosu, but that's true. Yeah. You do at least have a body out there. So you could go with the Booth pick and say, well, we've got our other guy, at least in free agency. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I think that I mean, the thing that really encourages me is there's a very high chance that one of Mafe or Ebiketie will be there at least. Because a lot of people thought one of those two guys, if not both, would go to like Kansas City in the late first.
Mm-hmm.
That is the thing that encourages me because, like, I was sitting there getting excited when it all of a sudden looked like, whoa, Devin Lloyd might fall out of the first, but I didn't really think that was going to happen. That was a pipe dream. So
Yeah.
was Linderbaum falling out of the first pipe dream.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel the same about Booth Jr. Like he's just somebody's going to pick him up before 40.
It's possible he drops though, Brendan, because I believe he did not test. And that's the one thing that can cause a player to really fall at times. When last year was kind of dodgy, we don't have the testing numbers. I don't think his arms were the longest. I think there's some things that may allow him to kind of drop just a tiny hair there in this draft and be there at 40 for us. I mean, it is possible he gets picked up ahead of us. There's some other teams that have that need, like you mentioned, Tampa Bay. But that's the one reason I think he is falling is that they want those testing numbers. They want to see the 40 time. We want to see the shuttle. They want to see all of it. And he's not been able to, to give them. Give me one. Sorry,
real
go ahead.
quick. I think we got 2 super chats.
Oh, let's get it
way up there.
Let's get
the first one. Yeah, there we go.
Good. Elliot Clark with the GR donation. Thank you, Elliot. Appreciate you. Very kind. Says others are grading our pick as an A grade, and he's liking that. What's your grade pick on this one, Brendan?
I don't think we could have done anything differently. Like, okay, I can understand maybe you wanted Sauce, but Sauce wasn't there. I can understand maybe you wanted Thibodeau. Thibodeau wasn't there. With what we had available there, knowing that a trade down probably would have been very, very, very weak, very tepid. Clearly the market for trading down was weak right now, as the Vikings showed us.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone having a problem. Like, I haven't watched it yet, but apparently, like, when we made the pick, Rob Statton really didn't like it. And he had a guest on with him when the pick was made. And the guest, I mean, he wasn't trying to be rude, but he was kind of like, well, what do you think we're going to do? Look at the guys who are gone. What are we supposed to do? Like, how can you be this upset about this? This is literally the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know why you hate him as much. Like, I understand if you're not blown away by Cross and he doesn't wow you, but that you look at him as some guy that's going to be somehow a miss in this league and not be able to get the job done. That's where I don't understand arriving at that place of it. That seems like a bit of a stretch. And by the way, I don't know if there's another player you take there, Jordan Davis, anybody else who has a potential garnering an A grade there. Cross is an A grade. It's one of the top tackles in this draft. You walked away from a position of vital need right now and desperate need. Desperate need, right, Brendan? Not need, desperate need.
I mean, unless you're willing to get your quarterback killed in 2022, then yeah, we literally don't have one right now except for Forsyth. Literally, who would our backup left tackle have been before taking Cross? It would have probably been like, I don't know, Jamarco. No, Jamarco's gone. Yeah, I don't even know. We would have had to kick like
we don't have one.
We would have had to kick Kyle Fuller out there, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have one on the roster. That's why it was a desperate need, and you got one of the best upper level, safer left tackles. By the way, in the upper level 3 of those tackles in that tier 1 board, 2 of them have some question marks. There are questions with those guys. Again, we talked about maybe going to guard eventually. You get a pure left tackle. Pure as the driven snow left tackle here, and it's the hardest positions to find in the sport.
And the thing I want to remind people. A month ago, Cross was considered a guaranteed top 10 guy, and then he started slipping for things for reasons that had nothing to do with anything he ever did on a football field, because he wasn't on a football field over the last month. It had to do with people digging into his testing numbers and being like, I kind of don't like this. I kind of don't like that. He played in air raid, which is something that I think people really unfairly hold against him.
Yeah.
Like
overstated.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're a draft analyst, unless you really don't like Cross for one of those reasons that some people had, I think that this has to be an A pick, especially if you're just a casual observer of the Seahawks from the outside looking in.
Yeah. And Brent brings up a good point. This happens with players. You get to the end of the season, people have looked at the tape, people have watched the player, they put a grade on the player. And then they go in and they keep looking at guys and overlooking and picking apart. What is it? The paralysis by analysis? Isn't that the phrase out there that they'll use, where it's just you've overanalyzed it and you got yourself to paralysis state on a player as opposed to just getting yourself lost in the forest despite the trees. He really is truly a top 10 grade. Don't overthink it. Just make the straightforward right selection for what he is. And he is that to me. Is he as good as some of the left tackles in recent history that come out as far as talent level goes? Maybe not, but is he a lot cleaner on some of his floor versus guys like Mecca Becton, who the Jets are talking about trying to trade, or Andrew Thomas, who's not exactly been a flying success for the New York Giants since they made him a top level tackle. Those guys had more talent coming out, but they weren't as safe as far as their floor either on the other side of it, I would offer. Let me get this. We got another donation here from Hoodie Jube. What's up, my man from the Saints in the house, dropping a $2 donation. He says, spam that like button. We had we have over almost 300 people here in the chat tonight. So please do, if you're in here, please hit that like button for me and Brendon. It would help us out considerably. As well, if you haven't gone over to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel, please gone over there and do subscribe to his channel, as he does great work over there. He'll be live streaming along with me over the next couple of days. So we'll be over on his channel tomorrow on the post breakdown of the super successful day 2, Brendon, that I'm already predicting ahead of time. I'm going to own it. I'm predicting it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
It helps with the algorithm, people. Those likes, they're like gasoline into this engine.
Yeah. And we need gas. We ain't getting up this road without it. So please do. It does help. Nolan Arvance with a $10 donation. I don't understand all of the Willis proponents. So we're going to start to turn this one over, Brendon, which is good. I want to talk about this. It says, did you find him a fit for what the Hawks want to run? I don't. Thank you for the $10 donation. And I'm going to let Brendon take this one, start things off.
Yeah, I'm torn on the Malik Willis thing. I do like him. I think he will eventually be a good NFL player, but it's certainly not a sure thing. You're not going to find out for a while. And yeah, if you look at what the Shane Waldron offense will probably be, not really a great fit. I do have him fairly high on my big board, but as for a fit with this team, I don't know. Look, if we took him, I would have to believe that Shane Waldron wasn't like throwing a bunch of stuff at Carroll to try to stop him from sending the pick in because he's like, no, I can't use this guy. No, don't give me this guy. I would assume that Waldron went, no, I think I can figure it out with this guy. And at the very least, they would be coming at it from that perspective instead of the perspective of the offensive coordinator being force-fed a quarterback he doesn't like. But as we sit here right now, I will acknowledge the fact that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to get the next Lamar Jackson in an offense that doesn't really utilize a whole lot of QB runs.
Do you think that there was a conversation that was understood and had between Carroll and Waldron postseason where they both sort of looked at each other and went, okay, we're both not, maybe not whole 100% this mark, but we both feel pretty strongly that Russell Wilson is not a guy that can run this offense. Do you think that there was any type of that conversation knowing the trade went down?
I mean, there has to be. Like, I know Pete said whatever nonsense he said in his combine presser or free agency presser. But I don't think that if you actually thought, I don't think any sane person would go, we think Wilson is a top 3 quarterback. We think he's the best. We think he's great. But we're still going to trade him because we feel like it. You don't trade the quarterback unless you believe that he's not the guy, unless you believe that he's overrated, unless you believe that at the very least, even if he's great now, he won't be next year or the year after.
Right.
So yeah, that had to be part of it. Like he was trying to, I don't know if you remember this, but in his presser, he was trying to sell it almost like he was Russell Wilson's life coach. Oh, he's going to be great in Denver. This is going to be so great for him. We're so happy we were able to enable this second chance for Russell Wilson, which like I don't buy it. Some part of it had to be like, we don't think this guy has it anymore. So
yeah. I mean, I think the money that you had to spend on him factored into it. Certainly, Russell's discontent factored into it. There's not any of this. That's the whole thing. That's the reason. But a part of this also factored into this was his lack of fit within this West Coast offense. Part of why I predicted you, Brendon, in Denver, where he's going to be running the same kind of West Coast offense. They're going to very quickly adjust that offense on the run to more of a power-based running style with Javonte Williams and having him take deep shots out of it when it's all said and done. But the reason I bring this up is I think Willis is echoes of Russell Wilson. And if you've done this to Waldron in the first year where you said, okay, Waldron, we're going to bring you in, and not only were we not going to get you mobile offensive linemen to fit your scheme, we're also not going to have you fitted with a quarterback who can exactly quite run your scheme in the way you exactly quite want to run it. Would you say that's a fair thing to say about his first year here?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was inheriting Schottenheimer's players basically. The only player he brought in that was like his was Everett,
Right.
and I guess Gabe Jackson, but that's really about it. So, yeah, it was a very big uphill battle. Some people, I think that with some justification, there are some people that feel like Russ was almost set up to fail.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to keep you, but we're not really going to go get any great players to help you out. We're going to put you in a brand new offense with a rookie offensive coordinator that doesn't fit your skill set. Da 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 da. But yeah, I don't hold much of anything that happened last year against Shane. Maybe one or two moments, but I don't even think he's responsible for forcing Russ to play when he clearly wasn't ready. Like there
Yeah.
was that one game in Green Bay where he couldn't even take snaps from under center because of his finger, and they had to throw out half the playbook. I
That's
think it was the
right.
Green Bay game.
The pistol. That's what they ran that whole game.
Yeah, I don't think it was Waldron that made that call. I think he just had to work with like, okay, Wilson's here, he's going to play. I guess I have to figure this out.
Yeah. No, I think it's and the reason again I say this is I think you've done this to him in the first year where you said, okay, here's a tough hand we're going to give you in your first job as offensive coordinator. We're not giving you the players, and the quarterback is a good quarterback, but not exactly a fit for your offense. Now we're going to give you this Malik Willis and do more of the same. And
Mhm.
this is where I go, like, I don't, you know me, I hate Matt Corral. I don't want Matt Corral. Matt Corral is more of a fit for this offense and what you're trying to do in this offense than is Malik Willis. But Malik Willis is a better quarterback prospect than Matt Corral. And that's where you got to make to me the delineation here. There's a little bit of a difference in how this you look at this. And I just think with Malik, he's going to take years to develop, Brendon, which means if you're trying to operate out of the 2011, 2012, 2013 blueprint to get you back to a Super Bowl, he's not really doing that for you, right? Because you need the young rookie quarterback on the rookie deal. But he's going to take a couple years to get to where he's really going to get. And by year 3, where he starts to take off, now you're just about having to pay him now. And you're back in the same boat with a quarterback who's not an exact fit. It just seems where I can see that going wrong in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, it definitely can. I do wonder if we like, let's say tomorrow we get Willis and Lucas, and
Mm-hmm.
then we get in the third round Beef Jerky, which I know sounds insane because that's no defense whatsoever in the first 2 days. But if that happens, I wonder if they would just go, okay, we know Willis isn't really ready, but we're gonna just toss him out there with this new rebuilt offensive line and
See what
hope that
happens.
yeah, basically. I do wonder if maybe they would just be like, oh no, you're gonna start day one, dude. We know you're not ready, but tough.
Yeah.
I can't, and I don't know how that would turn out. It would probably be a mess, but I don't think you would take a quarterback in the second round just to sit him for a year, maybe two.
It's the thing. I think you're with me on this. This narrative of that's thrown out there with these kind of quarterbacks of we'll get him sat on the bench. We won't play him. It's an overwrought narrative that rarely comes true. If you draft a guy in the first round or high in the second round, the pull to put him out on the field, the pull from the fans to put him on the field, the coaching staff is going to happen and click in at some point during the course of the year, especially when you have Drew Lock and Geno Smith on your roster. It's going to happen. You're going to throw him out there. There's not going to be any of this. Let him sit and wait. And then you throw him out there and put him behind this line. And this is a better, this builds to another point off of this comment, Brendon, which is getting a quarterback in the second round. You're getting a quarterback and the drive to put him on the field is going to be there if you select them. This whole we're going to select a guy and he sits stuff is not happening. If you would you agree? If you take a quarterback, whoever it is, Ritter, Malik, Corral, Howell, whoever you grab is going to end up on that football field in 2022. Am I off on that?
I mean, in fairness, let's think about this for a second. The Bears took Justin Fields and did not start him until Andy Dalton got his brains turned into mush. So that's what was that, the 11th overall pick?
Does Andy
So
Dalton play the whole season though with the way he was playing last year, even if that doesn't happen?
that's the question that I guess we'll never know the answer to. Probably not, but at least they were planning to ease Fields in. Maybe they even had some packages just to bring in Fields for a few plays a game for a while. Like, remember when the 49ers got Kaepernick and they still had Alex Smith,
Mm-hmm.
and they would just bring in Kaepernick for a few plays a game to
Yeah.
do like QB draws and stuff? It might have been something like that. But other than that, you are absolutely right. The days of Carson Palmer getting drafted number 1 overall and then not playing a single snap as a rookie, those days are long gone.
So let's use the Fields as an example on this because this is right on where I want to talk about with this. The draw happens with Fields. Everything's about with Fields last year in draft. Give him a year, let him sit. He's got a lot of stuff he's got to figure out and hone in his game. Bears are like, we know he needs a lot of he's got to fix and hone in his game. Then they get out there and yeah, Dalton gets his brains beat out, but he would have been on that field otherwise. You had a guy in Nagy trying to save his job at the time. He was going to throw all the guns he had to bear to try to get this to get right. And then what happens? You put him out behind a bad offensive line. Fields gets injured, doesn't play particularly well, and we don't know if that doesn't maybe potentially as we move forward with Justin Fields stunt his growth versus having him go to a team that might have had a better offensive line, or God forbid going to a team where he actually truly got to sit for a year. And my argument, and this isn't just Willis based, this is Ritter based, this is Crowell based, is that same draw is going to be there for the Seattle Seahawks to play that player next year. And you're in the same position as far as your offensive line to get that kid hurt, get that kid to develop bad habits. And I don't want to see that happen with the next quarterback. And I certainly, Brendon, don't want to see it happen with the next quarterback who is talent deficient to some degree. Whoever quarterback you're getting in the second round, would you not agree? You're talking yourself into it in certain realms.
Yeah. There's a real problem with that. I have adamantly said this whole time that my favorite quarterback scenario would be Carson Strong, and the way the draft has gone so far, I almost wonder if he's going to get to like the 4th or the 5th because quarterbacks are falling, and the teams that are going to address their quarterback needs are going to be able to do so at later points. Could be a cascading effect where maybe Oral and Howell end up in the 3rd, and then Strong ends up in the 4th or 5th. So I like that because you will not be married to Carson Strong at all. You can give him some time. And if he's not the guy, then you can just say, okay, we blew that 4th round pick. Oh, well, we're used to that around here. Amara Darbo, Chris Harper, just the list goes on and
Gary
on.
Jennings.
Oh yeah, Gary Jennings.
I could do this all day. I can do this all day.
Yeah, whatever. We haven't gotten fired yet, and we blow 4th round picks like it's candy. So
and to make sure I'm getting what you're saying right, so that people understand this. First, second round, I'm kind of married to you as a quarterback if I take you there. 3rd round, that's more of I'm in a flyer position when I'm taking a quarterback. I can leave you the next year, and the fan base ain't going to squawk, and nobody nationally is going to squawk at me. It'll be fine if I go to a quarterback the year after that. Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you get a guy in the 4th round and you throw him out there and you ruin him a little bit, then okay, what did you, I mean, at least you didn't like ruin a Picasso painting.
Right.
No, you ruined, I don't know art, but some very good artist.
You didn't ruin an Andrew Luck like the Colts did, which would be a given scenario. We're talking about taking a 1st round quarterback. You ruined the Case Keenum type guy of where he would be selected. And that's again, there's nobody has any problem with that at that point, but I will have in the 2nd round, 1st round, when there's much better players, you could have gotten like a Charles Cross. Imagine getting that they got Matt Corral in the 9th pick in this draft, no Cross, and you have Corral. I mean, it's just crazy talk.
Yeah. Did you see the CBS mock that had us trading up to 4 to get Corral?
I think I saw that one. Yeah. Isn't that Prisco?
It might have been Pete Prisco. Yeah. I'm so happy I don't have to learn how to pronounce his name, by the way. I was going to have to learn how to pronounce his name if we drafted him. Now I don't have to worry about it.
Oh, I know. Because now I just get to keep messing it up constantly because I don't have to care. And I won't care. But please don't pick him, Seattle. Please, God, don't happen tomorrow. Oh, my God. Another super chat here from Corsos D. Gutierrez. What about Ajabo Mafi at 40-41 or Travis Jones or Hall? Which would you go? Which would you be your preference there?
I mean, the Ojabo thing is scary, but yeah, he's definitely on my list. I have him in my gold tier, so I would be cool with that. I have Mafe and Jones and Hall all in my gold tier as well. Give me those guys at 40 and 41. I would throw Ebiketie in that group, Kyler Gordon, Falele, Abraham Lucas. Like, there's so many different ways we can go here. Logan Hall.
There we go.
If we need a receiver, I don't know if we do, but Christian Watson. Like, there are a lot of things we can do here.
So
that's why I don't want to trade up.
Let's go with this combination he gave you. You got a choice of Ajabo or Mafe or Jones and Hall.
I'm going Jones Hall. Or wait, is he saying that, or is he saying you can do one of those two things at 40? Or one of those two things at 40.
Oh, I guess he's saying, yeah. So he's saying Ajabo or Mafe and then Jones or Hall. So I go Mafe Jones.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, that's what I would do as well. Ojabo scares me a little bit. I mean, I think I don't have to explain why, but yeah, I have no I mean, Mafe's scary too, but he's got a much better chance at this point than Ojabo.
He does. I think there's more with Mafe. He's just developing in the player he was. I was listening to the Minnesota coach talk about him in a recent podcast, and it just sounds like he's just starting to scratch the surface on the player that he's going to become eventually. And what's not to like a Travis Jones, right? I mean, what's not to like with that guy? An interesting question here from Hoodie Jube, and thank you, Corsos de Gutierrez, for that. And thank you, Hoodie, for your double donos today. He says, you think Cross signing was a stab in the back to Russell Wilson? I had a few questions about this in the chat, Brendon. Seems like all he wanted was protection, and now getting it after trading him. Thoughts?
Well, I seriously doubt we're that petty. I think we are occasionally a little petty, but we are not that petty. And I think this is a good time to make sure people understand that Charles Cross is going to be a left tackle. And the left tackle position has been very strong during the Wilson era in Seattle. We started with Russell Okung, who was I don't know if he was a Pro Bowl quality left tackle, but he was close, at least for most of his tenure here. I know there were injuries, but he was a very good player. And then after you lost Okung, you did float around for a little bit in no man's land, but then you turned around and traded for Dwayne Brown. And Dwayne Brown made Pro Bowls here. He made the All-Pro team one time. He was excellent, and he barely missed any games. So that position has always been covered fairly well. The areas where we fell short in protecting Wilson came at other places. So I don't really think about it like that. It's kind of funny to think about, I will admit. I had the same thought run through my head. But if you really step back and look at it, I don't think so.
And to Brendan's point on this, to add on to what he's saying with Dwayne Brown, let's not forget Dwayne Brown. You made the trade, Hoodie Jube, for him for an original second-round pick, and then you're removing Jeremy Lane. Jeremy Lane then failed his physical, and then you threw a third-round pick on top of it to make sure the deal could remain consummated. You put a lot into making sure you could get Dwayne Brown here, who was going to be 31, 32 at that time, but still a very good player. So they have shown a willingness to do it. They just don't attack the whole offensive line when Russell was here. And they made interesting if you agree on this, Brendan. They made this is what they did, Hoodie. And I've related this to the Green Bay Packers. They said, okay, you're Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, you're going to want all of the money. All of the money. Okay, fine. Guess what? We're still going to have a legitimate defense. You're not going to get us to sign off on just going whole hog on the offensive side of the ball. So what that means is, because we still have to have a legitimate defense and we have to pay you, we're going to have to go light somewhere on the offensive side of the ball. To me, the Packers have decided to go skill position in that realm of things. Seattle, on the other end of it, decided to go with the offensive line as where they were going to go light. But it was determined to do that based partly upon Russell Wilson making what he was making, and that there's a finite amount of money that you can spend, and you've got to allocate where you got to allocate. Am I off on that?
No. And also we have to remember, in the Wilson era, we were never picking anywhere near as high as we did this time. The offensive tackles you can get down in the 20s or sometimes even in the 30s are not as good as Cross. Like, if you think back to all the first round picks we've made since Wilson got here, can you identify left tackles we could have taken that are as good as Cross as a prospect? I doubt it, especially when you include the fact that Cross is 21.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point, Brendan. I mean, your average position is what? Probably over the last 10 years, somewhere sitting around 26th or so in the back of the first round. Look at this draft at 26 and the tackle, you're at Tyler Smith. I mean, he was taken, I think, before that at 25 of the Cowboys. So he's off the board. You're to Bernard Raymond at this point.
Yeah. And I think Tyler Smith's going to play guard in the NFL personally.
He's got a good chance to do it. I'll say that. A very good chance to end up sliding into there. But the bottom line being is that he ain't in that same level of Cross. You haven't been picking that high to be able to do that. Seattle would have if they could have, but Hoodie, you can only deal with the cards that you have. And if you're a good team, you can only pick what's there and available, you know. Mm-hmm. I know your Saints team picks so good on the offensive line, Hoodie, but it's hard for some of these other people out here, you know. We don't have the Ryan Ramczyk, Cesar Ruiz's, Teron Armstead's.
Yeah, we were in the Discord a couple weeks ago. We were looking at that 2017 Saints draft where they got, like, what was it? Marcus Williams, Kamara. God, I can't remember all the guys, but it was just insane. Williams, Humphrey. It was just like they got 6 banger picks. It was like they got more out of that one class than we've gotten out of our last 8 classes combined.
It's true. It's true. It's why, though, I told people in my chat, this is why I maintain, get hyped about these drafts, because is the chances are they're going to kill a pick? No, but they could. And if they do, what it can do for a franchise, if you truly do hit a home run draft, you don't have to hit every pick, but if you have the majority like that, where you really find the starters and guys that are some difference makers, not true stars, just kind of upper level starters across the board all of a sudden, and boy, invigorate a team just like that. Can it not? I mean, can you not turn it around quickly if you get it right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why I get annoyed with these comments where I get from some fans. I don't know if some of them are fans, but they're like, "Oh, we're not going to be good for 6 years now that we've lost Wilson.
Right.
It's going to take 10 years to rebuild without Wilson." And I mean, it could if you do the things the wrong way,
Yeah.
but we've seen teams rebuild in a year. We've
Yeah.
seen teams take 1 year off
Yeah.
and then they're back. Like the example I always use is Philadelphia. They went from blowing up under Chip Kelly. They had one bad year, the first Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz year. Next year, they won the Super Bowl. And there was not a whole lot left over from the Chip Kelly era because he completely messed that up.
Yeah.
It was a couple of offensive and defensive line pieces. I think like Malcolm Jenkins. And other than that, they turned the page on almost everything. And they won the Super Bowl after taking one bad year on the chin.
It's the one beautiful thing about the NFL is that you can turn your fate around so much faster than any other sport. And it's the part that should give people at least a little bit more hope than, you might average to normally have if it was another sport. So it's, you never know. And especially a first day like this, when you hit the first pick out of the park, this is what it takes. This is the beginning of these picks. They go out there and now over these next 4 picks, hit 2 or 3 more of these. That's that much faster you're turning this team around. That much less work you have to do down the road because you're getting stuff right now. Love to see it. It's Hoof. Thank you for becoming a new member of the channel. I appreciate you. It's Hoof. Please go read the community section. I did about 31,000 word freaking draft profile guide, Brendon.
I read part of it. My favorite part was when the pro comparison for Matt Corral was Johnny Manziel.
That's right. Johnny Manziel with plus arm strength minus mobility, I think is how I put it on the draft guide. Seahawks Primo with a look at Seahawks. Look at that, dude. He's got the Kenny Easley. Look at that. He's rocking the Kenny Easley on the deal.
I met Kenny Easley in real life. He doesn't seem like a very happy dude these days.
Oh, dude, that sucks. He had a tough end of the thing. He had a kind of a tough break with the kidney thing.
Yeah, and I think he's shrunk a little bit since his playing days. It's just it's not fun to be 60 years old when you played football your whole life, I'm sure.
Oh, no. And say nothing of the CTA from being an old school guy, too. That was back when they did Oklahoma drill 5-7 days a week. You're just smashing helmets constantly back then. So the amount of head trauma that guy's probably taken from 80s football alone is, dear God. But I like your icon. That's awesome, Kenny. Easy icon. Seahawks Primo, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, let's go Hawks. Between Cross and Okung, who measures to Walter most or closest?
I would say neither. I think Walter Jones was kind of a unicorn. Yeah. I wouldn't even try to draw that comparison with either guy. When Walter Jones came out, I think he was viewed as a little more of a run blocker, if I recall. So I guess I would say Okung, but Walter Jones turned into one of the greatest pass protectors of all time. So I don't think you can. It's like we don't need to compare every single shooting guard in the draft to Michael Jordan. We don't need to compare every left tackle to Walter Jones.
I think it brings up a great comparison there with the Michael Jordan aspect. You have Walter Jones, who legitimately is the argument for being Seahawks Primo, one of the best all-time left tackles in the sport. Russell Okung was a good player. He's not going to be in Hall of Fame discussions when he retires. Charles Cross is going to be a good player like probably Okung was, but he's not going to probably be in Hall of Fame discussions. Though he's 21. We don't know. We haven't seen, but I'm going to make a guess, probably not a Hall of Fame player. So in Walter's case, you're not just talking Hall of Famer. You're talking the best of the Hall of Famer and then taking these two guys to make a comparison. I will say from a physical standpoint and makeup, Cross is closer in build and movement ability goes. But again, like Brendon said, he's missing the power by leaps and bounds that Walter Jones had in his hands. Walter could move anybody off the line of scrimmage. That's perhaps the main part in Cross's game that you would pick at and say that he might struggle with just a tad without the gate. So, Walter's just was that much of a difference maker on that side. A legitimate argument to be made that guy was the best Is he your best left tackle all time? Do you have somebody else ahead of him?
I've always kind of thought Ogden was better, but I don't know. It's really hard. I mean, at that point, you're splitting hairs. Like
Hmm.
Walter Jones had that streak where he went 2.5 years without giving up a sack. Like you can't do better than that.
No.
Like
Well, you had Sean Alexander rushing for the yards he was rushing in the ground game.
right, right.
Yeah, no, you can't argue with that at all. Thank you, Seahawks Primo, for the $5 donation. Food of Magic with the $2 donation says, does the pick of Cross eliminate re-signing Dwayne Brown?
I hope so. Let's get Cross out there. I don't see any reason to believe that he's not ready to play and it's gonna like be bad for him.
Yeah.
I know he's young, but I think he has a decent amount of experience. I think he's ready to go day one. Just let's go. Playing Dwayne Brown now doesn't do us any good.
Mm-mm. What about bringing back Dwayne Brown, moving to the right side?
No, again, it's the same thing. He's too old. He's not going to
Yeah.
he's not going to be around by the time we're ready to go again.
Agreed.
I mean, just play Curhan. If you don't draft somebody this year, just play Curhan for a year and see what's up. That's fine.
I'm with it. And again, with Cross, he is only a left tackle. He's not a right tackle type. So you can't bring Dwayne in and kick Cross to right tackle. That's not right tackle is the guy you want as the mauler, your run blocker type. Left tackle you can handle as the dancing bear whose main skill set is to pass protect. So
Yeah, it's kind of funny to me at the combine. All these offensive tackles are like, "Oh, I play on this side, but I can play on the other side." It reminds me of like you go in for a job interview and you're lying about what you can do.
Yeah.
And you're like, "I'll figure out how to do it later, but
Yeah.
I need this job. I need this job, man." Like Abraham Lucas was saying, "Yeah, I think I can play on the left," and I don't think so. Dude.
No, you can't. No, you can't. It's like the actors do that when they go into auditions. Like, can you ride a horse? Yeah, I can ride a horse like I can do horse tricks. Oh, can you can you fire a bow and arrow? Have a bow and arrow master. Which kind of bow and arrow? Old school style, medieval style. I got it all. Then they get on set and they're like, we'll figure this through one way or another. But no Dwayne Brown at this point. This pick absolutely eliminates that at this point. And like Brendon said, you ride with this guy day one. You ride with this guy day one, and you don't make any apologies for doing so. He's going to be a good player out there, and probably good pretty quickly. Maybe not great, but at least pretty good.
Yeah, I'll give him some time to get pushed around by the elite pass rushers out there, and he'll learn. But yeah. We did miss one super chat from Logan McSwain. He just asked thoughts on Pickett going to the Steelers. I thought it was hilarious, but I don't know about. I mean, okay, I should take that back.
Let's dive into this one. There's a lot to this one, right, Brendon?
Yeah, I was impressed with a lot of things I saw about Pickett. It's just he's going to be playing at Heinz Field in an open air stadium. That's not good.
Question though on this, and maybe I'm being crazy in my conspiracy mind on this. 1984. Steelers need a quarterback. Terry Bradshaw's getting old. There's a young, hot trot kid coming out of the draft. He's falling in the draft because everybody thinks he parties and likes cocaine. Also plays for the University of Pittsburgh, by the way. Steelers pass on him. They then proceed to lament it for the next 25 years. Is there any part of this pick that's impacted by one Dan Marino?
You would hope not. That was a long time ago. The people who made that decision are probably not alive right now. So you wouldn't think so. I mean, comparing Kenny Pickett to Dan Marino, like that's I'm not going there.
The owners are the same.
True. Wow. That's crazy to say. I didn't really think about it from that angle. But if that's the reason, then that's pretty. I think that's
insane.
Bad.
Don't get me wrong; it's insane. But this just hit when I saw the pick. I was like, because I think in my first mock, I had Pickett going there, and I had already thought about it in the mock with that. Like, yeah, they've been because what's happened here, Brendon, is that you're right. It's a long time ago, but guess who's not let it go for that 3 decades? The fans in Pittsburgh, who I know have been reminding that team and that franchise about not having taken that pick like that at the time. And so I don't know. Maybe again, I got my weird conspiracy mind on this kind of stuff, but I just couldn't help but think that maybe there's some little part, maybe a little small percentage. It's like, well, we passed this one time on this guy, and boy, did it bite us in the ass.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, next year we should figure out who the quarterback is from Southern Miss because the Seahawks are going to take him because we passed up on Brett Favre in the 90s.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
History doesn't repeat itself, but it does speak in rhymes.
Yeah, time is a flat circle.
All
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I don't hate Kenny Pickett, but I
Yeah.
didn't view him as a first rounder. That's what I'm going to say about that.
I didn't either. And again, when I was talking about Malik Willis not being a good fit for coming to our particular offensive game style, the one that I thought he might have been decent with going to is going to a Steeler team, a team that's going to want to run the football, a team that's going to want to play defense, a team that's not going to necessarily need him to go out there and make all of these throws, but allow him to be elusive in the pocket, a la like Roethlisberger was, make a couple occasional big throws. I thought there was just more of a fit for Malik going to the Steelers because of that. With that said, Pickett is fairly safe quarterback in this draft in the respect of he's going to be pro ready pretty quickly, I would think. He has things to clean up in his game. Arm strength limitations, tiny baby hands certainly aren't helpful. Like Brendan said, playing out in the outer limits. He's been playing in Pittsburgh outdoors. That's helpful, at least that he's been in the environment here recently. But again, only one great year of college production at Pittsburgh and a lot of not even middling years, just not even great good years, just kind of like,
Yeah, very true.
But I don't hate it for them. It's not bad for value. They didn't trade up in the draft to do it, but there would have been other quarterbacks. I would have even put Ritter or Willis ahead of that because they think they're trying to compete right now. And I don't think Pickett's enough of a difference maker is he going to unseat even Mitch Trubisky to you?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, he
Okay.
does. But it's close. The fact that I had to think about it is not good.
Yeah, the fact that I can't just yes, yeah, no doubt. It's a first round pick. No doubt. Trubisky's a bust. He couldn't even, no, I know it's a little harder to say. I do think he'll be better, but to your point on that, but it's close.
Yeah,
It's
I know
close.
your pro comp for him was like Tony Romo.
A light Tony Romo. Yeah, he's a
mean,
lesser.
that's not bad. That's not
No,
bad.
no. I think there's some elements to his game. He's got some upside to him. And if he continues to build on that final year and be what he was there with that, then they're going to feel very happy with that pick. But those baby hands aren't going away. And again, man, if I'm going to take a quarterback, I can't be saying arm strength limitations as one of the first things that I'm going to maybe be saying about his game. He's like a guy, if you're throwing deep, you want him like throwing it on post routes where he's just going to lay it up and let the guy run it up underneath it. He's not the guy throwing the 9 routes on a rocket ball underneath. He can't even do like the Kirk Cousins deep ball element of things to his game, in my opinion. All right. We caught up on the super chats. We got tomorrow here on the reservoir. I think we talked about our picks. Anything else you want to kind of discuss about this upcoming day tomorrow or the upcoming draft?
Not really, man. I think we covered it pretty good. I mean, today we made one pick, but I think we did everything we could, right? Everything we could control, I think we controlled it well. We went with the safe, sensible, sane pick at Cross. We didn't trade back and try to get him at 13 and then have him go at 11 and then we're all mad. We didn't do that. We didn't trade Metcalf for less than he's worth just because we were desperate to trade him. We just sat on him, and I think we are at this point committed to him because at this point, if you traded him, you would only be getting a second round pick this year and probably a future first. That's not going to do it for me. That's something that I'm going to be like, oh, wow, you guys have no understanding of value. And we didn't trade up into the back end of the first to get a quarterback or, well, anybody, but especially a quarterback. So I think we've done everything within our control as well as we could have.
To kind of, sum up with what you're saying and taking away, it's a little bit about this first round, not about who you selected, but about the missteps that you didn't make.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the stuff you did, and then there's the stuff you didn't do. Absolutely. Like, I don't know what the offer was for the Deebo Samuel, but you also saw that with the Niners. And Deebo, by the way, has demanded out. And they're still like, no, we're not going to just give him away for less than we think he's worth.
What do you think they do with him now? I'm surprised they didn't move him.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's over. Once the guy says, I want out, I think the party's over. Now, they made it work with Aaron Rodgers. They made up with Aaron Rodgers when he basically said, I'd rather retire than stay here. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, I feel like at that point, you got to move them. So there's really not much you can do. No. So I guess they're just stuck with maybe a very good wide receiver holding out into 2022 because it sounds to me with Deebo like it's personal. Like it's not just a matter of I want to get paid. He doesn't like Shanahan or something.
Something's rubbed him the wrong way. And look, Shanahan, I think he's a great coach, but we can't doubt he does have a little bit of that old school coach mentality in him of, I'll put you in my doghouse. I'll tell you what time of day it is. Do it my way. I got a lot of those vibes off of him in that respect. And that may be something that's pushing Debo a little bit further out the door, because who doesn't want to stay in California and play in San Francisco in warm weather and be in a place in, it's, there's got to be something at play here to cause this thing. But they might do what you just talked about: second, first round, go second tomorrow, and then take a first next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would be pretty happy with that. I don't think that's fair value for a guy like Debo coming off the year that he just had, but that's the best they can do now. Apparently, I read something that said like the Niners offered him 19 million a year, which is a low ball. That's probably part of it. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like there's something else there. It's not just money. It's I don't want to play wide back anymore.
Right. Well, and especially after this AJ Brown trade, guy he went in that same draft, you're not getting him for anything less than 25 at this point. 25 and 50 guaranteed that's the floor on the beginning start of the negotiations, like it or not. And I've maintained that they're in a pickle. They still have the Bosa situation to figure out, because he wants to get paid too, and they don't have a lot of money. And they got two guys that are going to want to make huge, like 50 million a year, in what they're going to want to take off the cap collectively.
Yeah. I also heard like they're stuck with Jimmy until he clears a physical, because if they cut him, like he gets all the money that he's owed because he's injured. So I don't know. I don't know if Jimmy's at home, like dropping flower pots on his toes so he stays injured or something.
I was always wondering with that, Brendon, on these injury designation like that, because it's weird. You can sometimes cut a player for whenever you want to cut him, and you can get just free and clear. It doesn't matter. But then if he's injured, there's times where you can't just cut him on that because he's with an injury designation. And I was wondering how hard would it be for a player to be like, yeah, my ankle's dodgy right now, and you couldn't prove it. Like, well, there's no bruise. Like, it's hurting me. It's killing me, man. I'm telling you, I'm in desperate, dire pain. I can barely breathe. It's like,
That's a great idea for a movie. A player who needs the money for on his contract, but he knows he's going to get cut.
Yeah.
So he like gets somebody to go like Kathy Bates in Misery on his leg just so he can stay injured or something.
Or the guy in Platoon. Remember the scene in Platoon where the guy takes that big knife and jams it right into his thigh just after the combat to get himself to go home, to get him on the
Oh
deal.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's like this big. It's like this big. One of those Bowie knives.
Yeah.
I could see it, man. I could see it. Hey, if it got you a couple $1 million of salary, I mean, is that not worth it at that point?
I mean, for Jimmy, it's worth 25 million.
I think Jimmy would stab himself in the leg for 25 million. I think he'd do it.
Yeah. He's not getting much more money from anybody else, I'll tell you that.
As long as it's not the face. As long as it's not the face.
Yeah. I saw him in a Subway commercial earlier today, and I was like, man, that guy's doing commercials. The 37th best quarterback in the league is in a Subway commercial.
He's getting commercials. Oh dear God. Yeah, that was not earned on the field. Let's just say that was not earned on the field. Well, I'm stoked for tomorrow, Brandon. Are you stoked for this? I mean, I'm after this first day. Are we not just as hyped up as ever for this next upcoming day of draft?
Yeah, short of drafting a quarterback, and even then, I'm not going to be that mad if we draft a quarterback. We can't do that much stuff to mess this up.
Right.
Like if we get Malik Willis, I'm going to definitely have reservations, but I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to be like, I can think of all the ways this goes wrong, but I can see it going right too. And it's a second round pick. I can live with it. If we get Kenneth Walker, I'm not going to love it, but at the same time, I'm going to be like, he's good. I like him. There isn't a whole lot we can do to mess this up, in my estimation. No. I don't know what we could do that would infuriate me. Maybe trading up, because I don't think you have to, but even that would just annoy me. So I'm ready for it, man.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. They would have to really, as I said, this first round today at the beginning of this draft, they'd have to really work hard to piss me off in this draft. They would have had to have really done those moves in the first round if it was going to get me to a piss state. It ain't going to at this point. You just, like I said, moderately annoyed, like a fly that's buzzing around your head that you can't knock away maybe a little bit if they did something really outrageous. I'm not expecting that, though. I think that they feel good about this first day and where they're sitting and the players that are available. My God, Brandon, the guys that are available, so tantalizing, these guys that we're going to have. We're going to have our pick of some really good players, the way that you just have 7 teams ahead of you, yet there's 13, 14 players. So there's just still 5 or 6 guys that you're like, hey, I feel plenty fine with this. What's your stream scheduled tomorrow over on your channel?
I'm going live at 4. I can't really go live too much earlier than that, so I'm just going to start when the draft starts, and I'm going to stream until there is no more draft to stream. What I think day 2 usually takes longer than day 1. I think we might be there for like 5+ hours, maybe even 6. But I'm planning on doing the whole thing, same as I did today, or well, actually, we are now in Friday.
We're technically broken over to the other side.
Yeah,
we
right.
broke
So
broken this side. So we'll go over to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel if you can for me, please. Subscribe to his channel if you're not already. He will be live streaming like I will be tomorrow. I will be back over on Brendon's channel. Probably let's call it. Well, yeah, it's probably going to go a little later, so it'll be around probably 10ish or so, 9:30, 10ish. We'll see where it lands. Where I'll be back over on his channel as we go live there, and then we'll probably shoot for Sunday, I think, because we're going to be probably pretty tapered out by Saturday when it's all said and done. We'll see how it goes, but
I need to go outside, man.
I know. haven't seen daylight. I know. I went from grinding prospects to right to this, so it's going to be just like, all right, I need to go on some long walks for a little while with this.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about tomorrow, though, because 3 picks minimum. I don't think there's any way we don't make at least 3 picks.
Agreed. I would be shocked to see them moved out with Wade, especially with the talent and how it's pushed down to positions of need, where you've seen some positions, say 3 safeties go in the top of the draft. Quarterbacks will be going in this first round, which will just again push that much really good talent for positions of need that they have to us, which I think leads them to just make the selections. So 3 picks tomorrow, folks. Strap on in. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. Our Hawks are starting to do things the right way, at least on day one. We'll see if they can carry it forward as we go into the future, but at least day one, they've knocked out of the park, both me and Brendon Nelson. Big time A grade on it. Brendon, when's the last A grade you put on a Seahawks draft to begin things with the first pick?
I don't know if it's ever happened. I got to be perfectly honest. I mean, I guess. Well, the thing is, like when the Okung Thomas draft happened, I wasn't following football close enough to even have the ability to go, yeah, that's an A pick. I mean, I was following it some, but I wasn't throwing myself into it the way that I am now. Yeah. I did a little bit during the Holmgren era, but that was back when we were picking like Kelly Jennings and stuff like that. And I wasn't giving that no A.
No,
I'll tell you that.
Tim Ruskell drafts never got an A. He was a B- floor guy as his ceiling guy as far as his draft grades go, even Lofa drafts. So yeah, no, this would be Okung's the right one to put it to for me. I was following him pretty deeply at the time. Okung is by far the way, but it's been 12 years. 12 years since you've been able to walk off a first day and say, yeah, yes, hell yes. So let's see if we can keep it rolling. Let's see if we can keep knocking this out the park. Me and Brendon are very optimistic, I think, at this point. This is an encouraging first step. Like I said, like Brendon said, actually, not like I said, like Brendon said, it's more about the missteps that you avoided in this day one than it is just about hitting the right pick. Yeah, you made the right selection, but you also avoided making the stupid, silly, dumb move that at times you've made in the past. Let's see if they can carry it forward. We're hopeful. We think they will. Appreciate you guys watching. Please, again, hit that like button if you're watching this, even on replay. It does help out a lot. Go subscribe to Seahawks Brendon Nelson channel. And please don't you guys forget as we get into day 2 here, don't get lost in the woods off the first pick. We got all these other picks, and don't you ever forget now. Don't you ever forget. What do they not need to forget, Brendon? Let them know. Let them know.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.